Hello, everybody. Welcome again. It is your girl, Mabis, and I am so excited that you're joining me again today for another edition of our book series as we continue reading Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. Today, we would be tackling chapter 4, and I just want to thank you all that are joining me in this journey. I am enjoying it, and I love the fact that a lot of you are resonating with it, also enjoying this, and are actually sending me messages of encouragement. I seriously do appreciate it. So, as we continue reading this book, I just want us to continue to see the message, the obvious as well as the one buried in between the lines. I want us to continue to look at this storyline very well, the different characters, and see how they resonate with an experience that we may know. But most importantly, I also want us to be critical of what we read and what we are listening to. I want us to self-examine and see how better we can do things, and see what it is that we are more than willing to change and change for good. And I want us to be able to understand also that change is not always a bad thing, that change is truly, most of the time, the only true pathway to growth. Thank you. Let's begin. Chapter 4. Looking at a king's mouth, said an old man, one would think he never sucked at his mother's breast. He was talking about Okonkwo, who had risen so suddenly from great poverty and misfortune to be one of the lords of the clan. The old man bore no ill will towards Okonkwo. Indeed, he respected him for his industry and success. But he was struck, as most people were, by Okonkwo's brusqueness in dealing with less successful men. Only a week ago, a man had contradicted him at a kindred meeting, which they held to discuss the next ancestral feast. Without looking at the man, Okonkwo had said, "This meeting is for men." The man who had contradicted him had no titles. That was why he had called him a woman. Okonkwo knew how to kill a man's spirit. Everybody at the kindred meeting took sides with Osugo, and when Okonkwo called him a woman. The oldest man present said sternly that those whose palm kernels were cracked for them by a benevolent spirit should not forget to be humble. Okonkwo said he was very sorry for what he had said, and the meeting continued. But it was really not true that Okonkwo's palm kernels had been cracked for him by a benevolent spirit. He had cracked them himself. Anyone who knew his grim struggle against poverty and misfortune could not say he had been lucky. If ever a man deserved his success, that man was Okonkwo. At an early age, he had achieved fame as the greatest wrestler in all the land. That was not luck. At the most, one could say that his chi or personal god was good. But the Igbo people have a proverb that when a man says yes, his chi says yes also. Okonkwo said yes very strongly, so his chi agreed. And not only his chi, but his clan too, because it judged a man by the work of his hands. That was why Okonkwo had been chosen by the 9 villages to carry a message of war to their enemies unless they agreed to give up a young man and a virgin to atone for the murder of Udo's wife. And such was the deep fear that their enemies had for Umuafia that they treated Okonkwo like a king and brought him a virgin who was given to Udo as wife, and the lad Ikemefuna. The elders of the clan had decided that Ikemefuna should be in Okonkwo's care for a while, but no one thought it would be as long as 3 years. They seemed to forget all about him as soon as they had taken that decision. At first, Ikemefuna was very much afraid. Once or twice he tried to run away, but he did not know where to begin. He thought of his mother and his 3-year-old sister and wept bitterly. Moye's mother was very kind to him, and she treated him as one of her own children. But all he said was, "When shall I go home?" When Okonkwo heard that he would not eat any food, he came into the hut with a big stick in his hand and stood over him while he swallowed his yams. Trembling. A few moments later, he went behind the hut and began to vomit painfully. Moye's mother went to him and placed her hands on his chest and on his back. He was ill for 3 market weeks, and when he recovered, he seemed to have overcome his great fear and sadness. He was by nature a very lively boy, and he gradually became popular in Okonkwo's household, especially with the children. Okonkwo's son, Moye, who was 3 years younger, became quite inseparable from him because he seemed to know everything. He could fashion out flutes from bamboo stems and even from the elephant grass. He knew the names of all the birds and could set clever traps for the little bush rodents, and he knew which trees made the strongest bows. Even Okonkwo himself became very fond of the boy inwardly, of course. Okonkwo never showed any emotion openly unless it be the emotion of anger. To show affection was a sign of weakness. The only thing worth demonstrating was strength. He therefore treated Ikemefuna as he treated everybody else, with a heavy hand. But there was no doubt that he liked the boy. Sometimes when he went to the big village meetings or annual or communal ancestral feasts, he allowed Ikemefuna to accompany him like a son, carrying his tool and his goat skin bag. And indeed, Ikemefuna called him father. Ikemefuna came to Umuafia at the end of the carefree season between harvest and planting. In fact, he recovered from his illness only a few days before the week of peace began. And that was also the year Okonkwo broke the peace and was punished, as was the custom, by Ezeani, the priest of the earth goddess. Okonkwo was provoked to justifiable anger by his youngest wife, who went to plait her hair at her friend's house and did not return early enough to cook the afternoon meal. Okonkwo did not know at first that she was not at the house. After waiting in vain for her dish, he went to her hut to see what she was doing. There was nobody in the hut, and the fireplace was cold. "Where is Ujugo?" he said to his second wife, who came out of her hut to draw water from the gigantic pot in the shade of a small tree in the middle of the compound. "She has gone to plait her hair." Okonkwo bit his lips in anger welled up within him. "Where are her children? Did she take them?" he asked with unusual coolness and restraint. "They are here," answered his first wife, Moye's mother. Okonkwo bent down and looked into her hut. Ojugo's children were eating with the children of his first wife. "Did she ask you to feed them before she went?" "Yes," lied Onye's mother, trying to minimize Ojugo's thoughtlessness. Okonkwo knew she was not speaking the truth. He walked back into his obi to await Ojugo's return. And when she returned, he beat her very badly. In his anger, he had forgotten that it was the week of peace. His first 2 wives ran out in great alarm, pleading with him that it was the sacred week. But Okonkwo was not the man to stop beating somebody halfway through, not even for fear of a goddess. Okonkwo's neighbors heard his wives crying and sent their voices over the compound walls to ask what the matter was. Some of them came over to see for themselves. It was unheard of to beat somebody during the sacred week. Before it was dusk, Ezeani, who was the priest of the earth goddess Ani, called on Okonkwo in his obi. Okonkwo brought out kola nut and placed it before the priest. "Take away your kola nut. I shall not eat in the house of a man who has no respect for our gods and ancestors. Okonkwo tried to explain to him that what his wife had done, but Ezeani seemed to pay no attention. He held a short staff in his hand, which he brought down on the floor to emphasize his points. "Listen to me," he said when Okonkwo had spoken. "You are not a stranger in Umuofia. You know as well as I do that our forefathers ordained that before we plant any crops in the earth, we should observe a week in which a man does not say a harsh word to his neighbor. We live in peace with our fellows to honor our great goddess of the earth, without whose blessing our crops will not grow. You have committed a great evil." He brought down his staff heavily on the floor. "Your wife was at fault, but even if you came into your obi and found her lover on top of her, you will still have committed a great evil to beat her." His staff came down again. "The evil you have done can ruin the whole clan. The earth goddess whom you have insulted may refuse to give us her increase, and we shall all perish." His tone